For 50 years, the Ukrainian Catholic Church was persecuted under the Soviet regime. Many in the Church chose to remain faithful in the face of this persecution. Honoring this faithfulness, from June the 23rd to the 27th, 2001, Pope John Paul II made his historic pastoral visit to Ukraine. During this visit, the Pope honored the Ukrainian Catholic Church by beatifying several people, among them the martyrs Bishop Nicholas Chernetsky, a Redemptorist, and his 24 companions. Among his companions was a Redemptorist, Bishop Vasyl This is his story. Father Vasyl was born June 1st, 1903 in Stanislavia into a priestly family. For generations, both the Velichkovskys and the Teodoroviches, his mother Anna's family, were priests. By the age of 2, his father Volodymyr was transferred to the parish of Shuparets, some 25 kilometers south of Borshchiv. In this church, Vasyl grew up, making his first Holy Communion and celebrating his first Divine Liturgy as a Redemptorist priest. In 1911, at the age of 7, he and his mother attended a mission in his grandfather's church in the village of Probizhnya. At the request of his mother, the missionary dedicated young Vasyl to the Mother of God. Bishop Vasyl referred to this event as pivotal in his life. Throughout his life, he felt protected by the Mother of God. A rosary was always in his hand. After the First World War, he entered the major seminary in Lviv. In 1924, he was ordained a deacon by Metropolitan Andrew Sheptetsky. That year, Deacon Vasyl entered the Redemptorist novitiate at Holosko. He professed his vows and was ordained a priest in 1925. In his first years, he taught at the Juvenate in Zboysk, but his heart was in missionary work. Soon he was transferred to Stanislavia, where he began preaching missions. He was a powerful preacher. Therefore, in 1928, he went to work with Blessed Nicholas in Volyn to work among the Orthodox, where he had much success, despite all the hardships he encountered there. In 1935, he returned to Stanislavia to continue his missionary work. On this plot of land stood the Redemptorist Church and Monastery, which was destroyed by the communists. It was here in 1940, while under the Soviet occupation, Father Vasyl had a huge procession on the feast of our Mother of Perpetual Help. For this he was arrested and interrogated. Fearing the people who dearly loved Father Vasyl, the communists released him. In 1944, when the Soviets returned to Ukraine, he volunteered to go to the Redemptorist Church in Ternopil to be there when the Soviets arrived. During that time, the monastery was abandoned. He literally walked into the jaws of war. Bombs fell throughout the whole city. On July the 29th, 1945, the secret police came to the monastery to arrest Father Vasyl. He was given the choice to leave the Catholic Church and join the communist-controlled Orthodox Church. He replied emphatically, "No, never." After many hours of interrogation, he was convicted of anti-Soviet propaganda. He was sentenced to die by firing squad. For 3 months, he was on death row. There he ministered to other inmates with the sacraments of penance and Eucharist. Finally, his name was called. He left the cell ready to be martyred for his faith. However, his sentence was changed to 10 years of hard labor in prison camps. many in the far north in Vorkuta, above the Arctic Circle. Life was very difficult. He had spent most of his time working in the mines of the Vorkuta region. Accused of inciting a general strike among the prisoners, he was transferred to the infamous and severe prison in Vladimir. After protesting his innocence to the Supreme Soviet, he was sent back to Vorkuta to work in the hospital. The latter move saved his life, for he was quite sick and weak. Upon his release in 1955, he went to Lviv and began living in the center of the city. Here he ministered to the underground church. After Bishop Nicholas died, Rome appointed Father Vasyl to be bishop. Unfortunately, there was no one to ordain him. In 1963, when Metropolitan Joseph Slipe was released from 18 years of prison camps, through the intercession of Pope John XXIII and President John Kennedy, on his way to Rome, he sent word to Father Vasyl to come immediately to Moscow. When Father Vasyl arrived at the hotel room, Metropolitan Slipe immediately began the rite of ordination for the episcopacy. There and then, in this Moscow hotel room, Father Vasyl Velichkovsky is consecrated a bishop. No sooner the service finished when the door opened and the authorities took Metropolitan Joseph to the airport and to Rome. Thus, Bishop Vasyl Velichkovsky became the only living hierarch for the Ukrainian Catholic Church in Ukraine. Bishop Vasyl returned to Lviv and secretly began to do his episcopal work. His small room became a chancery and a cathedral. Not only were priests ordained here. In 1964, Bishop Velichkovsky ordained Father Volodymyr Sternyuk to the episcopacy. Thus, the church hierarchy was re-established. In 1969, he was again arrested, this time for a booklet he wrote on Our Mother of Perpetual Help. He was sentenced for 3 years to a most severe prison in Kommunarsk, in the Donbas region of Ukraine. Here he underwent psychological and chemical torture. Drugs were administered to him to cause heart disease. Again, he was often interrogated to divulge information about the church. He was tortured with electric shocks and was beaten severely. He said nothing and refused to sign any papers. Although he became very sick, to the point of death, he survived his 3-year sentence. At the end of January 1972, he was exiled from Ukraine. He first went to Yugoslavia to visit his sister. Then he spent some time in Rome visiting Pope Paul VI and Cardinal Slipe. On June the 15th, 1972, he arrived in Winnipeg as a guest of Metropolitan Maxim Hermaniuk, a Redemptorist confrere who knew him from Ukraine. While in Canada, Bishop Vasyl traveled extensively, visiting the various Ukrainian Catholic eparchies. He gave clergy retreats for the Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Toronto eparchies and was present at several conferences and liturgical celebrations. His body was broken, his health ruined, but his faith shone brightly. Everywhere he spoke of the persecuted church and of the importance to believe in Jesus Christ and to commit one's life to God. In the spring of 1973, he again got very sick. On June the 30th, 1973, he breathed his last breath. Thus died our Ukrainian Redemptorist martyr. He suffered and died for his faith in Jesus Christ and the Catholic Church. He was laid to rest in All Saints Cemetery near Winnipeg. The week of September the 16th, 2002, began with the exhumation of his mortal remains. They were then taken to St. Boniface Catholic Hospital, where a medical team examined and prepared his body according to Vatican protocol. His holy relics, a fully intact body, were vested and placed into a stainless steel container. This was then sealed shut and stamped with an ecclesiastical seal.
few moments ago, we escorted the relics of the Blessed Martyr Vasyl into the Cathedral of St. Vada Bernolga here in Winnipeg. The Church has recognized, of course, the martyrship of many of our martyrs in Ukraine, and Bishop Velishkovsky is the only one of these martyrs who was buried outside the Ukraine. He was buried here in Winnipeg. That was God's gift to the Western world, so to speak. And he was buried amongst us, and now that he is beatified and a martyr, beatified martyr, his relics will be permanently enshrined at St. Joseph's Church on Jefferson Avenue.
Having fulfilled God's will, like Christ, you laid down your life for our salvation. Now you stand with countless martyrs before his face. Do not leave us orphaned, but intercede for us, that we may be with you as now we sing.
Rejoice, O wellspring of living water. Rejoice, O healing for the sick. Rejoice, O ointment for the soul. Rejoice, O hunger for the lost. Rejoice, for you call us to repentance. Rejoice, for you show us the face of Christ. Rejoice, for you heal the broken heart. Rejoice, for you restore the health of our bodies. Rejoice, for you do not abandon us. Rejoice, for you lead us to Christ. Rejoice, O Bishop for all. Rejoice, O Martyr for Christ. Rejoice, O Bishop and Martyr Vasyl, glorious champion for Christ.
O holy martyr, and our Father Bishop Vasyl,